Hello, RoahmMythril here once again, getting back to RoahmMythril, and it's time for the judge commentary for the last couple of stages we just played through, starting with 109th place, The Heist by Otherspike. This stage got a 47.88 total, with a 15.8 in design, 12.4 in fun, 8.4 in creativity, 6.6 in aesthetics, and 7.2 in functionality, but with a 5% time penalty. Mick. Oh no! Mega Man's breaking the law and robbing banks. What will his father think of it? Well, actually I'm not sure. Are we breaking in, or are we trying to stop the heist? Punk makes it a bit unclear since he's not exactly the police type. Anyway, this level does three things that I really like. First are the thin Mega Man 9 lasers. This has some of the best lasers I've seen in a while. Not only are they thematically appropriate, but they make excellent puzzle elements for digging into the bank. The second one is bomb throw. Normally these are a complete pushover, but if you go for the charge shot, more often than not you expose a laser in the process. That forces a not so trigger happy mindset, and it allows bomb thrown to be a genuine threat. The final one is sheep blocks. They don't show up much, but the puzzle for that E-Tank plus the Decone battle means they put on a show regardless. Unfortunately, the rest of the level is a bit weak. The Met sections are okay, but there's at least one Met that, if it hits you, you fly back into the previous screen. Since it fires instantly, the result is a terrible combination. The pendulum sections are really neat, but the tellies are too easily scrolled off screen. Finally, there's a number of functionality goofs. There's several rooms where the camera stop just doesn't work. Not game-breaking, but very noticeable. More importantly, that E-Tank sheep puzzle, if you decide to run back to reset it, the lasers from the previous room will leak into this room, making it all but impossible to get the E-Tank and dealing a ton of damage. That happened in my blind run. It wasn't pleasant. As a whole, this level is fun enough. It's definitely not perfect owing to its glitches and scrolling missteps, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Shinryu. This level doesn't really feel as fleshed out as it could have been. There are certainly some good ideas in here, that's for sure. As for the execution, well, first, I get what you're going for here with the Mega Man 9 lasers. It's a decent application of the gimmick, creating pseudo-puzzle rooms where you can't destroy too many blocks, or risk taking unavoidable damage from the laser. The sections where you need to use the Jewel Man swings to block off the lasers are also a neat idea, and it shows there was genuine effort put into this to try to keep the player on their toes and engaged. With that being said, those ideas can only really take you so far if they're not fleshed out enough. I think the biggest issue here is that this stage is way too easy. The core ideas and gimmick combinations are there, but they never evolve beyond introductory level threats. I can only think of two instances in this stage where I was ever remotely in danger. The first being a setup with a Met-tool that can easily knock you back into the previous screen you came from, since he's way too close after the screen transition, and then there's the third token, which I honestly still don't know how to get without taking damage. Besides those few moments, this stage ended up being a bit on the boring and easy side. It definitely wasn't helped by the lacking aesthetic details, such as the blank backgrounds and boss doors being normal transitions, or the fact that Punk's fight was completely neutered in difficulty due to the low floor that lets you easily evade everything he does. All that being said, I still think you've got a solid set of ideas here. The Mega Man 9 lasers are a critically underlooked gimmick, so this sort of level concept is ripe for experimentation. It just needs way more polish to shine through. Patchy. I need a medic bag. Looks to be a stage designed around manipulating the environment in order to pass through. A pretty creative concept, actually. The laser and dust blocks make for a really neat synergy, with how the player needs to carve out a passage that would protect against the laser, definitely the highlight of this stage. The swinging platform has always been awkward to me, because of how it doesn't carry over the momentum when you make for a jump. It's really not suited for horizontal platforming. The third token wound up giving me a lot of troubles. Having the telly spawner there is a little too much. The stage has some odd empty rooms like the one with all the teleporter pads. I can't tell if it's atmospheric reasons, or the author didn't have time to implement something. Same goes with the alcoves on the edges of the beginning few screens, which ended up leading nowhere but inconvenience. Could use some backgrounds to fill out the empty black void to gain some aesthetic points. Punk is really trivialized with the little safety alcove on the ground, as you can pretty much consistently dodge his ball form attack by just sliding in it. Flashman 85. I assume that awkward architecture, absent screen boundaries, hazardous screen transitions, and inconsistent collision object use are part of the building's security system, intended to confuse, injure, and soft block would-be thieves. On paper, this reads like a typical heist movie. Sneak into a building, avoid the defense lasers, overpower the guards, loot the vault, escape to the getaway vehicle, deal with an unexpected setback at the last minute. In practice, the theming isn't assertive enough to make this feel like a heist, so the whole thing falls apart for me. I can't tell from the graphics what kind of building we're infiltrating, and the music doesn't seem to fit a heist unless someone's already tripped the alarm. Junk blocks, disappearing blocks, and swinging platforms actually work really well with lasers, at least when the player isn't being blindsided by sudden and improperly introduced threats. But these dissimilar gimmicks muddle the aesthetics even further. Dacon is a suitable vault guard that ties in with the laser theme, but none of the other enemies feel inherently like building security, nor do they have any visual or functional commonalities to suggest they're working together to guard the valuables. And it's not even clear what valuables are the target here. Are we after the energy element? Or the tokens? Or the piddly little bolts on pedestals? Do we even need Hammer Joe's getaway vehicle? Unless it's meant to be a police car. If we teleport out at the end? If I don't know what I'm stealing, or from whom I'm stealing it, this heist looks an awful lot like a series of innovative but inelegant laser puzzles, divided into short sections throughout a random building, culminating in a random sight gag and a random boss fight. Which is a shame, because I was really looking forward to Ocean's 8-Bit, or the Thomas Light Affair. Okay, showing my density here. I get the Ocean's 8 gag. The second one, the Thomas Light Affair. I'm not quite sure what that one's referencing. I admittedly don't watch like a lot of heist movies. There are some that I know the titles just through osmosis. I feel like there's a neuron being tickled something, I want to say, the Thomas Crown Affair? But I'm not sure if I'm just gaslighting myself with that one. But yeah, let me know in the comments. I feel like that's right, but that's another one that I know the title, I have no idea what the movie's about. Hey Spark. Huh. Did we leave the music I used for my 24-hour submission X Factory in the dev kit or something? It's from such an obscure arcade game, and if I had a nickel for every time this piece of video game music keeps showing up in this contest, I'd have 2 nickels. But it's weird that it's happened twice. Oi, you left out the... which isn't a lot. Anyway, short level, and it was reasonably fun, although rather tricky earlier in the destructible block segments, at least for me, since I need to use rapid fire and auto charge to assist with the wrist problems. That's not on you, just made it rather awkward to play. Yeah. Thinking about how much I tend to just do the peppering shots technique and just mash the button rather than holding it, imagining doing that with wrist issues. That doesn't sound fun. Whilst I like the atmosphere of the stage, it feels unfinished and untested at times. There's a lot of object placement errors in this stage. This results in broken doors, camera boundaries, and even the boss showing up inside the floor. It makes the whole stage look and feel rather sloppy. The tiling is reasonable, but some areas use what were foreground tiles as background, but thankfully isn't an area that isn't remotely dangerous. But then the reverse happens. Background, foreground, background, it hurts readability. What is rather irritating are enemies placed next to screen boundaries. Especially glaring is that one Met that appears in point-blank range of you and therefore keeps knocking you back. Yep, that's just cute. On the subject of the boss, the new room layout makes Punk even easier, as you no longer need to dodge most of his attempts at crossing the room. Outside of questionable enemy placement, the stage does feel fairly well designed. It's not a bad stage, but still overall below average for what you'd expect for a Mega Man level. This level just needed more time in the oven. Overall, I do feel like I agree with most of the comments there. The concept is solid, the idea of this is really good, and using the lasers the way you did, that feels extremely on point. That is a really good idea, I like that. But the stage does feel a little empty here and there. More aesthetics definitely could have helped. Also, I do agree that, yeah, the third token, the one that you're expected to, I guess, block the lasers with the swing, I'm not entirely sure how you're supposed to have enough time to do that, to get in and get out. Yeah, I had to tank the damage on that one too. Overall, I do feel like the quote-unquote plot of the stage is kind of left up to interpretation. considering the vault area, as I term it, where there's just the pedestals with some small screws on it, that feels like the heist already happened. So I do feel like the story that is meant here is either we are supposed to be trying to track down the culprits, but that one doesn't quite make sense because we're still breaking in through the laser grids and everything. So to me, it feels more like we organized the heist, but somebody beat us to it, that somebody being Punk. That is my interpretation anyway. Overall though, it is a very solid stage. Though, yeah, one thing that I think Patchy mentioned that caught me as well was all the little seeming side paths in the vault that seemed like they could go to other areas but didn't, and especially with 3 hidden tokens, I did feel the need to check every one of those, and there just wasn't a point to it. I'm gonna be honest here, it has been a few days between recording the actual gameplay and recording the commentary. So, I forget if I caught on to how easy the lower area made dealing with Punk. I mean, truth is, I generally find him the easiest of the Mega Man killers to deal with anyway. Like, dealing with the different levels that he goes across the room, it's not really that much of an issue compared to trying to read what Anchor is going to do, or just dealing with Balade's thickness. Punk feels like the most reasonable fight of the 3. So, yeah, I am not sure if I really noticed that the fight was made even easier. It's been a while. I do find him the most fun to fight, which, yeah, sad because he is also the easiest. Anchor probably next. Balade is just a pain to deal with again because huge hitbox. Huge hitbox, huge hurt boxes from the explosions, but I digress. The overall flavoring of this stage, I really like it, but yeah, a bit more background detail, polishing up some of the puzzles a little bit, and, like, the storytelling, I think you did the best you could without just outright text boxes, which honestly, I do appreciate. Let the player draw their own conclusion, tell their own story. I think that kind of works in some cases. Like I said here, I think we were beaten to the heist we planned to pull off. That's my takeaway. But yeah, overall, decent stage. Really not bad. I enjoyed it. But no, jump cut! And we're back. Time for 108th place, Identity Man by Sharp. This stage got a 48.2 total, with a 12.8 in design, 8 in fun, 10.2 in creativity, 10.6 in aesthetics, and 6.6 in functionality. Full disclosure, I have since gone back and played through the stage again to get to the secret fight. During a failed attempt to read through all the judge commentary, that's when I found out about the fight with... I want to say it's Mecha Sonic. I know it's not Metal Sonic. But anyway, I found out about that fight, went back to record that, and now we're coming back to actually record the judge commentary, so yeah, I've had more experience with the stage by now. Mick. Well, this is definitely a unique concept. While the vast majority of these enemies are pretty dull normally, turning them into controllable vehicles rapidly changes the game. They remind me of X1 ride armors, but with a bit more charm, and some of the vehicles are great playables. I found myself enjoying the Mets and the secret forms the most, although Shield Attacker was surprisingly useful. Data and Atomic Chicken were also occasionally effective, although I found I only really used them for specific occasions. Unfortunately, the majority of the gimmick isn't fun. The enemies that have good mobility have no combat function, which makes them near useless outside of specific scenarios. The enemies with combat functions are either unwieldy, or they just can't move outright. The good exception is the Met, being the only one to have both okay movement and decent combat that isn't a secret form. But the worst one, special mention goes to the Rabbitons. Those things move around like a 5-year-old on an apocalyptic sugar high and are a pain to control. Getting that heart token was one of the single most frustrating experiences in this contest, and I'm not touching any of the rabbit shortcuts after I got trapped in one and had to deal with sound spam. And if you decide to ignore the gimmick, the level by itself is really boring. Either way, someone loses out. The boss isn't that different. Identity Man has a neat concept, and he's picked an interesting selection of bosses to emulate. And honestly, the first half of this fight is some of the most non-Met fun I've had here. Unfortunately, when he gets desperate, the speed boost makes a lot of his attacks infuriating. There's at least one attack combination that is borderline undodgeable, which is really not a good thing. He starts out good and ends sour, not unlike his level. That he can soft block you with a hardman attack is also a severe issue. Now, that is a statement that stuck with me while replaying the stage, because, yeah, as best I can tell, hardman is purely a movement option. It just makes him jump fully across the screen. I don't think he does the pile driver move that hardman normally does that stuns you even if you're in midair when he lands, so I'm not sure where the soft block comes from. So yeah, if you know what's going on here, feel free to let me know in the comments. One other thing. I found the secret boss. Not sure how anyone would find that beyond random flailing, and there's an upgrade that'll reveal the secret, but he's there. He's a better fight than Identity Man, assuming his spawn animation doesn't automatically kill you. So yeah, probably a good thing I had advance warning about that, because I'm guessing, since you don't get a life refill after dealing with Identity Man, if you make the mistake of standing on the right-hand side of the room and then call in Mecha Sonic, he comes down through the ceiling and splat. Yeah. Shinryu. Why do I get the feeling this stage is directed at me in some way? I'm sure it's probably a coincidence, but it's kinda hard not to draw some obvious parallels here. That'll make sense later on. Putting that aside, however, I'm going to judge this stage based on its own merits. In those regards, it's not very good, sadly. The biggest issue here lies in the main gimmick, as it's very much a case of great idea but flawed execution. While controlling minor enemies is certainly interesting, it ends up being more of an inconvenience than anything. Their functionality really doesn't mesh well with most of the room layouts. Shield attackers, dadas, and crazy cannons are virtually useless, as most of the areas you find them in don't allow you to take advantage of how they control. The only ones that I actually enjoyed using were the MyThril, Atomic Chicken, and Apache Joe. Which, yeah, I never found where Apache Joe was hiding. The first actually has added mobility features like a double jump and a hover, while the second has its own section that makes good use of how it moves and jumps. As for Apache Joe, well, he seems to function as a breeze through the entire level option. Either way, I think it goes without saying that the stage really should have focused on giving the enemies more of a purpose, like with how the MyThril and Atomic Chicken were handled. Even if you try to ignore the main gimmick, however, you'll find there's two problems. The first is that the overall stage design isn't that great on its own, having very standard enemy and platforming layouts at best. Secondly, you actually need to use some of the enemies to get the tokens. The first one isn't too much of a problem, but the other two are much more finicky. The second token forces you to navigate past a section ripped straight from Heatman's stage while controlling a bomb throw. This isn't too hard once you realize this enemy has a high jump, but you can still easily die here if a Yoku block appears over you, as it can cause you to clip through the floor. Oh dear. The third token is the worst of them though, making the blockade disappear by jumping on all the top platforms with the... Okay, is it Rabbiton or Rabbitron? Because I think I've seen both. Anyway, jumping on all the top platforms with the Rabbitron is not only annoying, due to how awful that enemy controls, but also rather obtuse. Considering the wall looks no different than the one you can blow up with a bomb thrown, I was under the assumption that you needed to take one from a previous section to use here. Thankfully, that's not the case, but it's still some pretty bad conveyance on the level's part. Finally, there's the boss, who unfortunately has the same basic problem as the rest of the stage. Good idea, bad execution. Some of his attacks, particularly the Hardman Stomp, again it's described as a stomp. Was I doing something to just avoid that happening? Was this something that got changed in post? I'm really curious. Anyway, particularly the Hardman Stomp can lead to some pretty nasty setups that are incredibly tough to avoid. This wouldn't be too much of an issue if it weren't for his high damage output. If that one issue was fixed, I could see this being a relatively decent fight. Incidentally, the hidden boss wasn't that much better. For one, the way you even access this fight is incredibly obscure. After beating Identity Man, push up, down, left, and right. While he has a much easier pattern to follow than the main boss, his damage output is still very high. Other than that, he's a rather standard boss with one of the most unexpected defeat animations I've seen in a while. Yeah, I will admit that got me. All things considered, this was pretty disappointing. This concept itself is really good, and I think think it's poised for being reworked into something amazing that could 100% outclass Identity Crisis. So yeah, I think back in MagMammal 2, Shinryu had a stage called Identity Crisis that unfortunately, it's been a while and I forget the exact details of it. I think you either ended up playing as certain robot masters during different sections or something like that. It's tickling some vague neurons that have slept many times since then. It just needs more polish to get there. Patchy. No crisis, we have men instead. So, yeah, that comment also makes more sense after knowing that. Well, it's quite impressive that you've implemented a playable form for all the enemies in the stage. I can't say the same for the stage itself. Playing as the enemies has been proven a hindrance throughout, due to the clunky movements for all of them, and the fact that you still get hit with contact damage, meaning dashing through as a shield attacker or a Rabaton generally causes much more harm than to play it through safe as Mega Man. The stage should have really been designed with playing as the enemies in mind. Instead, for some reason, we get snippets taken from existing Mega Man stages stitched together. For instance, a level where players are to navigate various puzzles using certain enemies' behaviors, just like how the token challenges are in place right now. I do dig the aesthetics, simple recoloring jobs of existing tile sets, but the colors chosen make them match together pretty seamlessly. As for Identity Man himself, I like the concept of him borrowing other RM's movement and attack methods separately. Sadly, the fight quickly devolves into chaos as soon as he reaches half health, as he immediately reacts after an action is performed, with very little reaction time allowed for the players as they also have to focus on the top of the screen for the RM displays to anticipate his already ongoing attacks. Flashman 85. Following the success of MagMammal 2's Identity Crisis, you'd think a level like this would be a shoo-in for the top tier. Unfortunately, a clever premise can only go as far as the execution allows. Yes, it's incredibly fun to transform into enemies, but the level design doesn't play to their strengths. Data needs room to bounce around. Shotman almost never has anything to shoot. Shield Attacker is merely a taxi through empty hallways. Secret or not, Apache Joe demolishes any sense of difficulty. Rabaton, whose controls are frustratingly uncooperative, makes an already unreasonable token puzzle into one of the most excruciating experiences of this contest. I could go on. This disconnect between abilities and design throws off everything. Learning curve, challenge progression, even deciding which transformations, if any, are worth trying. I wish the level had pulled more inspiration from the vehicle/transformation challenges of the X and ZX series, and less inspiration from Heatman. The technical polish leaves a lot to be desired as well. Among the most glaring problems are inconsistent and poorly communicated collision damage while transformed, Sakugarne bouncing off invisible enemy respawn locations, which, yes, I think that did actually happen to me, and discrepancies between enemy behavior and transformation abilities, especially with the Met. The secret teleporters are bewildering, and one permanently locked me out of using weapons. It's never explained that Quick Slide cancels a transformation. Yes, we've discussed that issue in an aside that I posted in the gameplay video, that I forgot that was at least mentioned in the skip room. But yes, it would have definitely helped if that had actually been mentioned in the stage. Identity Man himself needs a small grace period between transforming and attacking. Players aren't given enough time to adapt, which spoils an otherwise fabulous fight. Also, upstaging a downed boss with another from left field doesn't feel right. Very clever. Gods, that tickles some neurons. Old point-and-click adventure game. I think it was Return to Zork, where there's this point where you listen into a couple of miners talking with each other, and they have a conversation where they emphasize words like that, and you have to pay attention to the order that they say those words to get through a maze later, and I thought that was very clever, so hey, points for that. I urge you to re-examine your planning and playtesting process, because this level could have been awesome. Aesthetics are a strength, the music works, the different tile sets fit pretty naturally together, the outdoor areas are luscious, and the parallax is a nice touch. Goofing around with the transformations is a heap of giggles, and the level plays fine without transforming. And A-Spark. Back when Loyana was playing for me as a proxy, he suggested a comic. I think too much effort has been put in for this for me to do that, but also the issues are fairly apparent, so novel time, here we go. This level is a really neat idea. Level design around it is often horrendous. Lots of unavoidable damage results when using the gimmick, and either the enemies make the areas a non-issue, or they are so annoying to use it's often best to stick to the basics. It's all very glitchy and feels like a work in progress tech demo. Hey, guess how bad the teaching elements in this stage are? Again, with me sitting next to him taking notes, it took way too long to figure out how to get a handle on how the metal works. You could argue that knowledge of the enemies would help in teaching, but the fact the metal can double jump was particularly cryptic since it's not exactly the enemy type known to do that. I think some of the enemy selections are just very bad for the gimmick in question. Some enemies felt unplayable, such as atomic chickens, to one-hit joke wonders. Shield attacker is amusing the first time, not so much on future attempts, and sometimes just unpleasant to use. Bomb thrown is so slow. And the less said about the rabbit from Mega Man 8, the better. Hoo boy. Sticking to the theme of confusion and poor teaching, the second and third token use identical graphics for different blocking mechanisms, and actually led to a really long time spent just trying to get that third token here. The first time, you use the bomb thrown. That's fairly obvious. If you played Mega Man 2, that style of block can be destroyed by explosives. Simple. So naturally, the third token, blocked by that very same block graphic, also requires bomb thrown, right? Oh no. Yes, it's barely possible to get bomb thrown here, and that is incredibly frustrating and took several attempts. Well, specifically, it took Loyana several attempts, but what were we to think? Yes, with me sitting next to him, we both came to that solution because the actual solution for this puzzle is moon logic. The rabbit has to jump on the spinny things, and all the spinny things need to be jumped on to destroy the block. What? This is not helped by just how horrendous this thing is to control. God, that made an already irritating level just reach new heights. Identity Man himself fits the stage like a glove. Good idea, really annoying execution. The fight is pure RNG nonsense, effectively making it a damage race, as it can use some unavoidable attacks with bad luck, and heaven help you if you kill it whilst it's using its hardman slam. Results in a soft block, that. Okay, again that's mentioned. I never noticed any kind of a slam, so yeah, legit curious. Post-judging comment. Oh hey, a secret boss that couldn't be factored into the review because it's super cryptic and basically impossible to find without knowing about it. Wow, I hate that. I really hate that level of disrespect on both the judges and players. There's nothing in the stage that mentions or even hints to this. Don't ever do this. If I could retroactively change the scores, I would, but I think given the skip vote and low placement, might not be necessary. So, yeah, the stage, I definitely think Shinryu called it with calling it awesome idea, but bad execution. A lot of the enemies, they just don't work the way you'd think they should. Like, Shield Attacker is a major outlier there for me. It really feels like if you ram into an enemy shield first, you should be the one damaging them, not the other way around. However, you're the one that's going to be taking damage in that collision. And that just doesn't really feel right. It does make Shield Attacker feel basically useless. Like, the only good thing about Shield Attacker is, yeah, it'll speed you up, but at what cost? And the Rabbitons, yeah, their movements do feel pretty frustrating. I also agree that lack of communication in this stage is an issue. Lack of communication on those two barriers for the tokens being different. Lack of ever telling you outside of the skip room, which the stage developer did not put that in there, of course, that you can use Quick Slide to get out of forms. I really wish I had realized that sooner or remembered it being said in the skip room. Like normally, having too many text boxes in your stage can be a problem, but having one to at least inform you of that gimmick, that really would have helped, I think. And also, yeah, some of the enemies working a bit different to actually make them feel more useful, that would have gone a long way. Like, you took liberties with Bomb Thrown. They generally do not move at all. They kind of look like they're hopping just in their graphics when they launch their bombs, but they don't actually move. But you took those sprites and adapted it into making them have jumps. And you let them actually move just hopping around. It kind of feels like you should have maybe done that with some others. Like, give Atomic Chicken some form of an attack. Make it so that shield attackers, you actually do damage to enemies when you collide with them if you fly into them, rather than them hitting you from behind. Things like that, I think, would have gone a long way, would have made the various enemies far more fun. Like giving Rabbiton kind of a spin attack, like while it's doing a spin jump, make it function like top spin. The idea is sound. There's some good stuff here, but yeah, it definitely needed some more polish, I think. But it is a very creative idea, and same goes for Identity Man. Obviously, the one I had the most trouble dodging was Gyro Attack, because there's not enough spacing between him firing two of them off. I still really do wonder, though, what was with the Hardman thing. Is that something that was edited afterwards to keep that from happening? Was I just doing something that made it to where I lucked out and never experienced the stun from the Hardman jump? Because I never noticed him stomping or pile driving or anything like that. So, yeah, that is a weird one. And yes, also on the subject of lacking communication, the teleporters for the hidden forms, I lucked into finding Sakugarne. I have no idea at all where Apache Joe could be. Like, even as of recording this, no idea. And, yeah, also communication on finding the hidden boss, because after reading about that, like playing back through the stage again, I was trying to pay attention to background details to see if there was anything that was maybe a hint toward it. I certainly didn't see anything, so yeah, I am confused by that one. So yeah, it is a stage that needs more work, but the idea is very creative, very sound, and it is impressive that you got it working in as much as you did. But yeah, I do think more time was needed with this one. I think this gimmick needed a little bit more time in the oven. Still, really cool idea. But with that, thank you very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the series so far, and I shall see you again next time. Until then, speed! Why am I now just thinking of the infinitely rotating chicken leg in Dr. Light's microwave? Is that thing done yet?